This is a debate that speaks for itself. This is the showdown at high noon that is long overdue. This is the occasion where a president of the United States gets to look a former president in the eye who staged the coup after he lost the election and say something. So, the nature of this debate is very simple. This is a fight where there will be a winner and there will be a loser. And no amount of spin afterwards will change that fact. Either Joe Biden walks into the debate and humiliates the seditious, criminally accused narcissist who incited a coup, levels him, or he loses. That is the confrontation. That is the job between these two men, of which there is no mystery around whatsoever. This is not a debate about taxation. This is a debate about fitness, about character. It is May 16th, 2024. 173 days remain until the American people decide Biden or Trump, America or fascism. From today, there are 42 days to the pivotal CNN debate. After that, 18 days to the opening gavel of the Republican National Convention, and 53 days from the CNN debate till the opening of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois. When thinking about presidential campaigns, it is important to remember that the campaign's primary responsibility is resource management. They must manage time and money, both finite commodities. And time moves quickly through a presidential campaign. We all have seasons and rhythms in our life. It occurs in the natural world. There is a predictable rhythm to life. And such has always been the case with presidential campaigns. They have been defined by events that are unequal against all the other days in the campaign. And really, in a general election, those days are the selection of the vice presidential candidate. When that happens, which will occur before the Republican National Convention, Donald Trump and that candidate will get a great deal of attention. They will dominate the news cycle for at least a couple of days. Another major event that occurs in the general election cycle are the conventions. And really, within those conventions, there are two outsized nights. And those are the nights where the two nominees give their speeches to the entire nation, of which tens of millions of people watch. Over the course of all the ceremony, theatrics, resolutions, and everything that happens over the course of the conventions, the accrual of events from those 4 nights and the 2 hours of primetime television given can make a difference. Each night, there's a memorable speech. And then there's the debates. There have been 3 debates run by the Presidential Commission on Debates and the vice presidential debates that play out over the course of the fall. They are the dominant events of the fall campaign. They occupy incredible amounts of time within the campaigns. Everything stops. When the presidential circus moves into the college towns where these debates are staged, the entire edifice and structure of the presidential campaign grinds to a halt. The only thing that matters is those debates. So the day of the debate is blacked out. The days before become blacked out. The week after is dominated by the debate and then the rematch for the next one. There is a reality of presidential debates. Usually, the incumbent president gets snuffed in the first one, crushed, humiliated. It happened to Ronald Reagan. It happened to George W. Bush. It happened to Barack Obama. Disaster. Now, in the past, the incumbent president has always been able to recover quickly from those debate disasters in the rematch of the second debate. And really, these debates are scored in a series of 3. A vice presidential debate can matter also. It mattered when Dick Cheney destroyed John Edwards. But the agreement between the Biden and the Trump campaign with CNN has upended all of that. and has dramatically changed the structure and the rhythm of the presidential campaign season. It has, in an instant, rewritten it. We are in a new age. Many times over the course of a political campaign, the commentary becomes a bit overwrought. It tends to invest more significance than should be into any single event. But this is a big one because it has blown everything up. It has changed the racetrack, the Daytona 500, because it takes place on the same racetrack every year. The track never changes. Presidential campaigns are like that. There's some deviations on the primary schedule, but the rhythm of the fall is the rhythm of the fall. And that's all gone now. So let's look at the consequences of this new era of presidential campaign politics in America. Because the way it used to work is wherever the race was, it pretty much locked into place over the month of July. There's a story in Axios today. It's remarkable. The story at its core says that President Biden does not believe the polls showing him behind. President Biden should believe these polls, and his campaign should too, because they are accurate, they are correct, and he is behind in the race. If it were tomorrow, the president would lose the election to Donald Trump, who believes that he won the last election despite no evidence. So it's interesting. We have one candidate who believes he won an election he lost, while another candidate, the incumbent president, believes he's winning an election he's losing to the man who claims he won an election that he lost with American democracy on the line. If the president truly believed that he was ahead in the race, obviously, he would not take the risk of a June debate. But he has taken that risk. So somebody in the Biden organization understands that the president is behind. Now, it's become part of the process of all presidential debates for the campaigns to try to lower expectations and raise them for their opponents. One of my favorite quotes in campaign season was from my friend Matthew Dowd talking about John Kerry when Matthew walked out on national television and said Kerry was the best debater since Cicero. It made us laugh, but you get the spirit of the endeavor. This is a debate that speaks for itself. This is the showdown at high noon that is long overdue. This is the occasion where a president of the United States gets to look a former president in the eye who staged the coup after he lost the election and say something. Now, let's understand the stakes. President Biden is all in here. He has taken all the chips and pushed them into the middle of the table. Now, let's imagine debate night. It's very important to understand something strategically. Donald Trump can't lose the debate with his people. There's nothing he can say or do to break their fandom. There is a lot that President Biden could say or do to erode support amidst the middle of the electorate in that small and tiny increment, that cohort that will decide the election in a few counties across a handful of states in November. Now, Trump is insulated from his insanity and his craziness because there is nothing new ever to learn about Donald Trump. But for Joe Biden, as the incumbent president, who faces a headwind because of that going into the first debate, what are the consequences of failure? What happens if Joe Biden performs as badly as Barack Obama did, or George W. Bush did, or Ronald Reagan did? What happens if Donald Trump overwhelms him? What happens if Donald Trump puts the president on the defensive? It will be a disaster. And let me walk you through what will happen next. The Trump campaign will be on offense like the US Army was in Europe in April of 1945. And there will be nothing between the Trump campaign and a blocking event until August 19th. The Trump campaign will nominate its vice presidential candidate, and it will roll into a convention. And by the time that convention is over on July 19th, looking backwards, should the president not do well in this debate, there will be 1 month until the Democratic debate. And from the moment the debate on June 27th ends, if it does not end well for Joe Biden, the only conversation taking place in America will be, should Biden retire and announce he will not seek the nomination at the convention, opening it. There will be panic, the likes of which there has never been seen in the modern era of presidential politics, as the incumbent president falls behind Donald Trump outside the margin of error. Now, the other thing that structurally is significant to understand about this June 27th debate is this. There is a third-party candidate in this race who has polled at various times as high as the mid-20s. If the American people look at a debate between Biden and Trump on June 27th and are left wanting, and the polls would suggest the fact that 85% of Americans once said they did not want this rematch, would seem to indicate that there will be a substantial percentage of Americans left wanting. And we know from all of the polling that the youth vote is completely disengaged. And so this is the moment where the two campaigns colluding together have created all of the opening necessary for Robert Kennedy Jr. Robert Kennedy Jr. needs lift, and the lift he needs is an institution in America that is not trusted, i.e. the media and the political parties, excluding a third-party candidate from a race and a rematch that an overwhelming percentage of the country agrees on they don't want. So, the nature of this debate is very simple. This is a fight where there will be a winner and there will be a loser. And no amount of spin afterwards will change that fact. Either Joe Biden walks into the debate and humiliates the seditious, criminally accused narcissist who incited a coup, levels him, or he loses. That is the confrontation. That is the job between these two men, of which there is no mystery around whatsoever. This is not a debate about taxation. This is a debate about fitness, about character. And President Biden has been defamed and smeared as senile, lacking sentience, unable to walk up and down stairs by the MAGA media for years. This debate is his rebuttal. It is his one and only chance to show the American people that though he may be deeply flawed, Donald Trump is simply unacceptable. Going back to that Axios story, it should frighten you. It frightened me. The two people who wrote it, Alex Thompson and Hans Nichols, are two of the best political reporters there are. They know what's happening. They know what's going on. And I suspect that story is all too true. Nobody wants to tell the president the truth. And the truth is, the president is losing to Donald Trump. He's losing the election to MAGA. And there will never be a day over the next 173 where the American people wake up with gratitude in their hearts for the CHIPS Act or the infrastructure bills. It is a delusion, as deep as Trump's about him winning the election. It is malpractice to run a political campaign proclaiming that Bidenomics has succeeded and made the lives of the American people better, because the American people keep screaming into the wind they don't believe that. There is only one path to victory for the president, and it is to assemble an anti-Trump coalition of Americans who believe in liberty and freedom, who don't want to be bossed around by their politicians, who don't want their senators and congressmen in the delivery room with them, do not want them in the psychiatrist's office with them, do not want them in the hospital room with them at the moment of death, at the moment of birth, or anywhere in between. It is time to reset boundaries for government. And the bottom line is this: when Joe Biden walks out on that stage, he'll be facing a man who has promised to lock up political opponents. He will be facing a man who has promised to create a police state to deport 15 million people. He will be facing a man who fetishizes the war criminal Vladimir Putin. He will be facing a man who promises to destroy NATO. He will be facing a man who promised to give Vladimir Putin a green light to invade European democracies. He will be facing a man who was found guilty of raping a woman and then defaming her. He will be facing a man who is accused of committing serious felonies. He will be facing a man who lied to the people of the United States 35,000 times, and he will be facing a man who so profoundly mismanaged the COVID epidemic that it left hundreds of thousands of dead Americans unnecessarily. Donald Trump was the most corrupt president in American history. Donald Trump stole from the American people. Donald Trump weakened the American nation. He divided us. E pluribus unum means something. It is the wellspring of our strength. And the reality is that unless Joe Biden can stand tall, stand up, and put this man down, he will have forfeited his candidacy in the next 4 years in the Oval Office in what will be one of the greatest and most colossal acts of egotism in American history, should it come to pass. The stakes of this debate, as high as you think they are higher. Joe Biden has gone all in the middle of June. And when you look at the act and dismiss the words, you understand Biden is behind and it's time for the fight. There's a question in the air. Is the president capable? Can he defend the American way of life? Can he make an argument with conviction and stamina and vigor and eloquence against the worst president in American history, who attacked the nation, desecrated his oath, and has promised to deploy the American military into America's streets against the American people? Trump is a sickness in our land. If Biden can't diagnose it and eradicate it during the course of the CNN debate, Democrats have every right to look for a new doctor. And millions of Americans will start looking around for another candidate on the ballot. This 2024 race has been slow to start. It is mystifying to the American people how we arrived at this rematch, but here we are. But now, the rules are gone. The track has changed. What lies ahead is what I've predicted all along: chaos in American politics. The CNN debate will be the most consequential presidential debate in an awful long time. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, and I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.